My name is Terry Elton, and I'm here today to help you think about how to write a reflection for your portfolio. So the first thing that I need you to do is to get the program outcomes for your degree program. If you don't have those, you can go to the Learning Leader group and they will be listed there. If you need to go get them, pause the video, go get them, and come back and join us. Once you have those program outcomes, I want you to pick one of the program outcomes to focus on. So for example, if you are an MDiv student, you might pick number 1, to form and lead Christian community around Word and Sacrament to boldly participate in God's mission in the world. If that's the one that you're picking, then I want you to think of an artifact. An artifact is just some kind of activity, maybe a paper that you've done in a class, maybe a sermon you've done in a context, maybe a confirmation lesson that you've put together. Some kind of evidence to say that you have done that. Now, it could be in different forms. Maybe it's in a written form. Maybe it's a video of you preaching. Or maybe it's something that you've done with your supervisor that's a reflection. So get that artifact and then come back, and I want to talk with you how you take the artifact and you connect it to the program outcome. Now, once you have your program outcome and once you have an artifact to think about how that demonstrates that, the best way to put a reflection together for me is to think of it this way. If you were to go up to someone, maybe a supervisor in a context, maybe one of your peers in class, maybe a professor, and say, how does this artifact that you chose demonstrate your ability to do this outcome? So maybe you put something from a confirmation retreat and you talked about what this was a bunch of activities that helped bring kids that didn't know each other together. Then we move from creating community into a time of prayer, into Bible study, and maybe even a time to talk about what baptism means or maybe what the Lord's Supper means. And then kids got a chance to lead in some kind of way. Now there's an example of an artifact being something from a confirmation retreat, and B, the reflection that's you talking about how that artifact demonstrated your ability to do this outcome. Now some of us are more verbal than we are writing. And so sometimes I found with students that writing this reflection is actually easier to do first with somebody else to talk it out. If you just want to do that and record it, that's another option, and then you have that to go back to. Otherwise, you could start by writing it and then read it to somebody else and have them ask questions to help you flesh out, have you covered everything that you wanted to in that reflection? Now, in the reflection, you don't have to go back and say all the things you did that are in the artifact. In fact, let's say it was a sermon, and let's say in the paper that accompanied this sermon or something like that, you had done some exegetical work. You don't need to refer to that in the reflection. What we want to do is in the reflection for you to refer back to it, but say, leave all of the other pieces to say, hey, that exegetical work you can see on page 4 if you want more. You don't need to go into that, but to talk about what was about the process and how did that help you form and lead Christian communities around Word and Sacrament to boldly participate in God's mission in the world. The other thing that I don't want you to forget to do is that each of those outcomes is going to be looked at and given a score from an assessor. Most of those assessors will be faculty. And there's a rubric that the faculty is using to go from 1 all the way to 5. And so then what I want you to do is go back to the reflection that you wrote. Look at that rubric and say, are all those parts in there? So for example, there are subcategories within there. So is there something around forming community? Is there something about Word and Sacrament? Is there something about God's mission in the world? Those are elements, subpoints, that the assessor is going to look at. And then on that range from 1 to 5, they're going to say, here's the kind of things that need to be present to demonstrate your ability to do it at a level 2 or level 3 or level 4 or level 5. Basically, there's a lot going on in each of these outcomes. And so in your first reflection and in your first time of being assessed for your portfolio, you're probably not going to get a 5. And in fact, you may not get a 5 by the time you graduate. This is an example of saying we're hoping that all students are from a 3 and 4 range, and maybe some will be in the 5 range. A lot of the 5 range are not only about your understanding to do this, but your ability to teach others. So as you think about this reflection, think about the outcome, think about an artifact, think about your reflection is you're talking to somebody or connecting the artifact with the outcome. And then think about the assessment or the way that the portfolio is reviewed as a way for people to give you feedback on how are you progressing in each of these areas. And then it's also a way for us as an institution to look at how are we doing in equipping you, the students, to live into the outcomes that we have put for you. Now, I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you see this as an opportunity for learning and growing along the way.